of being two troublemakers from Ballybough in Dublin's inner city was our multiple opportunities getting out into the arts community with our dad. He involved us in everything he was able to, not always out of desire. Sometimes, especially during the summer months, my mum needed a break from us. So my dad would take us to rehearsals and we'd sit quietly in the back of the auditorium while the actors and my dad, the director, knocked the play into shape. What was great about being at rehearsals was that the actors, knowing we were Peter's kids, would talk to us generally like adults. Where were we going to school? Do we like it? Favourite subjects? What kind of music are you into? That one was for me. What kind of sports and who are you supporting these days? That one was more for my brother. They were genuinely interested in us and in our intellect. We weren't treated like we were destined to get caught robbing a shop and end up in jail. We were treated like we were important, like our interests had value, like we mattered. It was at one of these rehearsals when I was 10 that the actors took a break for a cup of tea. One of them had been playing an acoustic guitar as part of the show. I had my eye on that as an item of interest, and as soon as they broke, I leapt up onto the stage and I picked it up. Not knowing anything, I just started strumming the open strings, wondering, how could I make this thing sound like the actor who'd been playing it so well? Here, son, my dad. Come here and let me show you something. I handed him the guitar. Okay, do you know this? He picked the opening 6 notes of the Beatles' Ticket to Ride and he strummed the chord to finish. It was like magic to me. Hardly looked like he was doing anything, and yet I heard everything. Jesus, that's bleeding deadly, I said. He sat me down beside him and put the guitar on my lap. Now you're going to learn it, he said. Put these 3 fingers here like this. You'll never get this wrong, he said, because they go right in here on the 2nd fret. I moved my fingers into position. Okay, now just strum the chord. I did, and it sounded muffled. But just make sure these fingers aren't muting any of the strings above and below. It was hard. My fingers were hurting already, and you could see that they were. Okay, relax your fingers for a minute. Give them a little break. And when they feel okay, try again. I'm just grabbing a cup of tea. Be back out in a minute. When he came back out on stage, I'd been practicing the whole time. I was ready for more. The more I tried, the easier it got. And I was jonesing for that next little salvo, the opening notes to the tune. Great, said my dad. You're really getting it. Okay, now you're going to play the next bit like this. Pick this note here, then the high E string, and back up these 3 strings, and take that finger off here and play this string and the next string up. It was hard. But there was an obvious pattern to it, like a magician's spell. But easy to learn and remember. That's it, said my dad. Keep practicing that. You have it. That's your first song. I think I'm going to be sad. I think it's today, yeah. The girl that's driving me mad is going away, yeah. I had to give it up then as rehearsals were starting back up again. I was fucking dying to get my hands back on that guitar. I knew a song. I wanted to practice and get better and definitely learn the next chord. I think it was a D chord. Yeah, it even looked like a D. Music, guitar, became a new artistic and emotional output for me. But finding space in the guitar schedule got harder and harder. And one night, the actor who owned it stopped by our house to say hello to my mum and dad. If you don't remember, this is how people used to act in the olden days. You were passing by somebody's house, you dropped in for a cup of tea and a hobnob. How are you, Vinny? As he came in the dining room door. How's your guitar doing? Any info on my sweetheart was welcome, and maybe I could figure out a way of connecting with it for a jam soon. Jesus, I had to pawn it, Rossa. I needed the rent money this month. Maybe I'll get it back next month and I'll bring it around for you to borrow then. Wait, you what? My dad. You what? You didn't, my man. Vinny was a bit taken aback. I mean, it was his guitar after all. I did. I fucking had to. I'm smash broke, Peter. But we would have bought it for Rossa, my man, not mincing her words as usual. My heart was sinking. At least when Vinny had it at his house, he'd bring it around, or I might be around there with my dad and I could keep jamming on Ticket to Ride. I had all 3 chords of the verse down and I was making great progress. It just was hard to keep really making leaps when you only got to practice now and then. How much did you get for it, Vinny? Said my mum. 50 quid, Sheila. Do you think you could get it out of the hawk, Vinny? If I gave you the 50 quid plus the extra, would you at least go see? Fuck yes! Absolutely loved my mum right at this second. Both my mum and dad, they knew how much my new interest meant to me and how much I enjoyed it and just how quickly I was progressing with it when given the opportunity. Yeah, Sheila, no problem. I'm going to be in town tomorrow. Give us the money and I'll see what I can do. Sheila, I don't think we have them up. My dad, fuck, my dad's going to derail this deal. We do, Peter. My mum gave him a look and a tone of voice that meant, we're not arguing about this in front of Vinny. We can discuss it later, but right now, this second, this is 100% this is what's happening. There you go, thanks Vinny. My mum took the cash from her purse and handed it to him. My brother was silent. This was very unusual because in my house, ordinarily, one of us couldn't be given a bag of Tayto crisps without the other one screaming bloody murder for his packet and how it wasn't fair and why does he get one and I don't get one and on and on. My parents had a rule at Christmas. We had to give them the money that our granddad palmed to each of us, and then they took it and put it together and split it in half and gave it back to us. Fair was fair. My granddad's favouritism towards my brother wasn't going to pass muster in our house. There was always grumblings, but it was always understood that this was how our family did business. And this was major. This was a potentially major purchase, a huge gift. This amounted to your main Christmas present, before the stocking stuffers and such. This was massive. And for some reason, my brother was silent. It was as if he'd had a similar realization to me. If this worked out, if Vinny managed to get that guitar out of hock, this would be a gift beyond jeopardizing. There was no room to scream for your share of the spoils here and risk my mum saying, fuck it, no one's getting anything, forget about it, Vinny. I thought I could do something for one of them, but apparently I was wrong. The strength and power of the gesture was beyond reproach, and even a snotty 10-year-old understood it. Needless to say, I came home from school a few days later, and the guitar was in my living room. Go up and do your homework first, and then you can play it. But man, it was useless though. I knew its addition to my house, at least on day one, would be leveraged to make me do my homework. I slammed it out as quickly as I could, and was straight into Ticket to Ride for the rest of the night. In my bedroom though, I was made to bring it upstairs immediately. It was always a race in my house to answer the door. One never knew who it might be, an uncle, an actor, the odd, now famous but then not anywhere near famous artist, someone from the flats selling stolen chocolate or stolen jeans. So when the door knocker went off one day, a few weeks after the great guitar gift, I threw myself down the stairs to answer the door ahead of my brother. He just lost that race to me, and we opened the door together to see a tall man in a suit and hat standing there. He was holding a folder and some papers. He had what we'd now call a Burt Reynolds 80s moustache, but of course, it was the 1980s, so it was simply an epic moustache. Is your mum and dad home? We knew who this guy was. Although we'd never seen this particular man before, we'd had enough experience with debt collectors to know exactly who he was. Mom, there's somebody at the door! My mom came out into the hallway from the dining room. Oh, right, she said. Kids, go inside. My brother went inside, a lot less concerned with this particular visit, while I ran up the stairs and I hid around on the first landing so I could spy on the conversation. How are you, Mrs. Sheridan? I'm here to collect the fine for the TV licence. That'll be £58 today. Will you be paying cash? Well, of course it would be cash. There weren't any cheques in this rundown house. Mr. She stumbled for his name. Flaherty, he said. Flaherty. Mr. Flaherty. I know when we talked a few weeks ago, I said I'd have the money. And to be perfectly honest with you, I did have it there for a minute. But a family emergency came up, and well, I just don't have it anymore. I promise you, if you can give me a couple more weeks, I'll have it then. I promise you. Mrs. Sheridan, I'm being perfectly honest now. I'm supposed to be calling the Gardaí and taking your TV right now. But in deference to your husband, who's a pillar in the community, I'm going to spare me the headache and you and your 2 kids the embarrassment, Mrs. Sheridan. This isn't going to slide next time. I will be back in 2 weeks. Our family avoided a small disaster that day, and I learned how far my mum would go and the bad fuckers she'd stand up to provide anything for her kids so that her kids could make headway in the world. I still have Vinnie's guitar. It's retired now. It's back in my parents' house in Dublin. Having travelled across the United States with me, playing cafes in Austin, Texas with my friend Paul, who I met in a park one night on a random wander around an Austin neighbourhood, and parties in my house and others in San Francisco, often with my mates from Ann Arbor, Michigan, who are all seriously talented players. It's incredible how much an instrument can mean to its owner, or guardian, depending on how long it's expected to be around. Those first few months of playing around Austin are embedded in the fibres of that guitar. Names long since forgotten, smells and vibes, and the crazy summer Texan heat. The new tunes I played for Melissa, long gone, but not her name. That guitar doesn't play so well anymore, but I'd never ever let it go.